Okay, I believe we are live. Welcome and thank you for joining me again. I'm Farzana from SF Digital and I'm so glad that you're back here with me again today. Hopefully some of you are watching live. Today's topic is going to be about setting and managing expectations. I've chosen that because it actually does tie in with last week's message, which is all about branding. So before we get on to that, I'm just going to quick reminder that we have launched our coaching program, which is Like a Boss, the Like a Boss series, and you will find lots of information in there, various courses that are I've got a nice message. Thank you, Sandy, for joining me again today. We've got lots of courses within the coaching program and you'll gain lots of valuable information all about digital marketing, but I won't tell you too much about what's in there. Please do make a note of the link that we have for you, which is sfdigital.co/YouTube, and you can go and find out a little bit more if you're interested and see what we're actually up to. So let's go on to today's topic, which is setting and managing expectations. And as I said, last week my topic was branding, and one of the cards from last week was a little reminder that you need to live and breathe your brand. And by that, for those that have watched last week's episode, it was really about realizing that it's not just about your logo or a few nice photographs. It's everything you do that comes out of your business, about building up the image you have, the words that you use, the way you communicate. And as part of that, it's actually also your behavior within your business. Now, I don't know about you, but this week has definitely been very, very interesting and a few challenges along the way, but they've been okay because in our case we've worked really hard to make sure that our communication, certainly within our teams and also with our clients, is really quite strong as much as we can be. If things have come out of the blue, which they certainly have this week for us, we're able to manage them, and this is what I mean about setting and managing those expectations. So I've just jotted down a few simple examples of some of the places within our business lives in particular where we might need to be setting some of those expectations. So for example, you've got customer-supplier relationship. It might be a client with another business relationship. It might actually be, as I said, employers with staff, outsources, contractors, agencies. There's a whole raft of relationships that we actually need to manage. And the difficulty happens when, through miscommunication, what's said is not necessarily what the recipient hears. And then that's when there is a disconnect between the two parties. Things start to go wrong. It's very difficult to backtrack and gain that ground back again. And that's why it is so important, I feel, within a business to set those expectations. So I'm just going to read this comment that's just pinged up. Yes, Sandy's just commenting that sometimes in the middle of our journey, sudden obstacles do come up in our way and they can lead you to go back to the beginning, and how do you get out of them quickly? I'm coming to that, Sandy, actually, and I've just touched on, it is about having your robust systems in place so that although all of us, we're all running around at 100 miles per hour, we've got a million things on the go. Even before I got onto this call in the previous 6 hours, the number of things, sheer volume of activity that I've dealt with before being able to come onto the live has been quite challenging, shall we say, on a Friday afternoon, but they're done and everything's in control and they will all be fine, and we will pick up again after this call and then back on Monday. So it's about your systems. Now, as I just said, when you are dealing with things in a verbal fashion, what's said is not necessarily what's heard. And how do we get around that? Certainly, one of the best ways we find with our customer, when we're a supplier and we're working with our clients and our customers, is to make sure that, one, things are not just written down in terms of an email communication, they are also documented in the final proposal of what actually happens. The proposal is not the same as the invoice, because along that journey, before you get to the point where you may be commissioned to do a number of tasks for somebody, you may have had a number of meetings, telephone conversations, ad hoc changes to what the customer thought they wanted, and what you end up advising them would be the best thing to commission for their needs. So there are lots of changes that could be happening, and that's why it's really important that the final proposal does actually go out. Now, in our case, we have a master that's set up. We've got our branding on there, back to last week's topic about consistent messaging. It's got our logo on there. There are different blanks depending on the information that's going on the different pages. But for example, if I take the example of somebody perhaps coming to us, let's say for a website build, they think they're starting with a website build, but in reality there are lots of different stages. Now, most website designers might just about go as far as saying, well, you'll get 8 pages on a website, and we will take the copy from you, and they might or they may not tell you the coding language, the hosting, etc. So it ends up being a very skeleton. Oh, you wanted a website, here you go, this is how much it will be for a website. And then it's a bottomless pit of miscommunication. In our case, we will document not just the fact that we are documenting the pages, the number of pages on a website, we will actually also go through and document exactly the pages titles as well. Of course, services may not be broken down because we may not know exactly which service, but the number of service pages, because it's really important, whether there's a blog in or not, because the coding for that is slightly different. We might have to use a WordPress plugin. We make sure that all of that is documented. But beyond that, we also need to clarify who's writing the copy. Is it going to be copy supplied, or is it something we are going to have to do? What about the images? Are they going to get supplied, or are we going to have to source them from an agency or from another photographer? How are we actually going to manage that? How many pictures are we going to include? Is it only going to be one per page, or have we got lots of sequential boxes that will all need images? Suddenly we're looking at 20-30 images. Now, if you're on a small scale website and now you've gone and said you're going to supply all the pictures, as the website designer or developer, you could face an expensive bill sorting out somebody else's imagery for them. Beyond that, we also need to sort out who's doing the hosting. Are we just supplying the site, or are they going to need us to do the hosting, which is a recurring bill that will not go under the one-off cost of the website. Of course, we think we're doing a website, but before you know it, the logo needs redesigning. There may be a graphic design element. The website itself, are we going for a high-end web design, or are we going to use a basic layout? All of these features have to be documented, and in our case we do that through the proposal, because it creates a great checklist. The customer knows exactly what they should be getting. Yes, initially the list looks quite detailed and people think, oh, I don't know where to start. That's where we can explain everything we're doing and perhaps take things out again or move things back in. It doesn't matter. But when we have any queries along the job, it makes it so much easier for the customer, who, let's face it, does not build websites all day long, or I hope not anyway, if they're coming to us. And it means that they've got somewhere to refer to, but they also know that you're clear and an expert in what you're doing, and hence that's why they've come to you, because they know you're going to look after them. And so that's a small example of how just a simple thing like a proposal document can really help to make sure that your customers' expectations are managed. Now, set, I should say. In terms of managing the expectations, that is also documented in our proposal doc. So, for example, if I have a client who I feel may need a lot of support and a lot of discussion perhaps along that journey of getting to their end point of a website, I've got to factor that in, because if I'm going to spend many hours talking them through what is basically website training as opposed to actually getting on with the job, I then need to remember to put a line into my proposal, which is the website build. Yes, we're delivering X. It also allows for X amount of hours within the job, which we classify as communications and consultancy time. It might be 8 hours, it might be 12 hours. And I also clarify with the client that yes, there's a sort of ballpark number in there. We're not going to, beat you up if it goes an hour or two over, But what that stops happening is that clients don't expect me to be on that phone 24/7, replying to tests, sorting out WhatsApp, receiving pings at all sorts of hours and expecting an immediate response, because suddenly that is going to be coming out of that time. The reality is, if your client, in our case, is trusting you to do a job and they know that you're on the job, that wasted comms time is probably cut down to quite a minimum, actually. But this is really important when managing those expectations with your customer. Now I'm going to go on to, for example, employer and staff expectations. So we always have a daily team meeting, and we make sure that anything that is happening during the week that the team need to be working on, I'm talking in particular about what we call our content team, which looks after everything we do, from every video that we produce on the YouTube live right through to the end process of reposting on 17 plus platforms now, etc. That is all part of the content team's workload. However, things happen, but if we don't know what the expectation is within that team, who's delivering what to whom and in which time frame, it doesn't take very long for the whole system to fall apart. So we've had some unexpected things happen within the content team this week, but because the system's already there, it has meant that yesterday I was able to step back in, pick up the pieces that I needed to pick up, double check with all the staff that everybody knows what they're up to, but also communicated to them the expectation is, please do not just autopilot your jobs through. You know that there's a slight problem in the team at the moment. Make sure that you are proactive and have double checked your jobs that are coming up in the next week or so, to make sure that there aren't any hidden problems that we could have foreseen beforehand if we had checked the jobs earlier than usual. An extra safety net, if you like, to make sure that we don't hit any brick walls next week. And I've also explained to people that because of the hiccups this week, I might be pinging internally on our internal communication system. We happen to use Slack. If you see some pings on there from me to the general team, I do not expect anyone to be responding. I do not expect anyone to be checking those as such. It's just that I may be working over the weekend and I just need to clear them down and make sure I've passed on my comments in case I forget them. So don't use that. Don't feel that you've got to suddenly start working at the weekend. So I'm hopefully looking after them and managing them, that they're not expecting just because Farzana, the boss is asking them to do something, they're expected to drop everything on the weekend. It's setting those boundaries that it's clear, I am respecting your boundaries. I appreciate the weekend. I've clarified and said, if it's urgent, I will say it's urgent. Of course, please, if you can, I would appreciate a response. But at the moment, there is nothing that is going to be in that situation. One I haven't listed is also when you're working with external agencies or with outsourcing in any shape or form. How do you manage that relationship and how do you get the expectations there? Now, lots of people have heard of Upwork, Fiverr, various other online VA kind of options. Numerous. There are many areas which you could apply this same principle to. So there's a joke with one of my staff. He said, how come when you send off briefs, the job comes back as you expect it to, and when I send them off, they're never quite there? And the reality is that the secret of expecting the job done the way you want it to be done is in your explanation and in your brief. And we will have another session just about how to set up a great brief, whoever that may be. This is not just design agencies or printers or website designers. It actually applies to anything that you're instructing. If you don't explain what you're expecting to have back, how can you expect the other party to visualize what you're expecting to get back? So for example, if I need to instruct a logo design to one of our graphic designers, that graphic designer is never going to meet the client. They're never going to have a feel for the likes and dislikes, the tastes, the audience. They don't know the client, because we're the ones that have had that communication and we're the ones that have had that interaction to understand what the job entails. So we don't just go to our graphic designer and say, well, the end audience is female, so just make it look nice. How is a graphic designer supposed to interpret what make it look nice is supposed to mean? So my logo design briefs are normally about 2 pages long, where we go into the background of the business, length of time it's been running, current website, who their end audience is, whether the typeface should be a sans serif or serif typeface, the kind of look that we're after, competitor logos or websites to get a feel for what's happening in the industry. We look at colour, of course, we look at style, icon styles. There's a whole raft of information that all gets documented down, which then goes off to the graphic designer. And also what I ask for back. It's no use giving a graphic designer a long list of nice things that you would like to see in the final design. You actually even have to explain to a graphic designer what you need returned back. So for example, with logo design, if it's the first round of concepts that are being submitted for first round of approvals and amendments, I actually go as far as explaining that I want to see 5 base designs, and of those 5 base designs, I want to see maybe 3 to 4 combinations of variants on the base design, and then within that just show the raft of colours that may come through. So the graphic designer's not designing 50 or 60 logos. It's still basically 3 to 5, depending on who the client is, base ideas from which we will then take the development work. Because otherwise you're going to end up with, like I say, 50, 60 designs. How are you ever going to present that to your client, and how will they ever get down to choosing just that one winning logo? In our case, we normally expect that those 5, like I say, base concepts get presented to us. It normally, I've yet to have a rejection that somebody says, don't like any of them, we've got to go back to the drawing board. Normally, because we've understood their expectation really, really well and interpreted that and presented that to the designer, it comes back fine. From there, we always have some final tweaks. Normally by round 3, occasionally round 4, the logo's done. It doesn't actually take very long. And so that's just one small example of why putting things in writing, setting the expectation, one from the client, what we're going to actually be delivering, but internally through the graphic designer, what we need them to turn around and return to us. Everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. So just a couple of work examples there. But beyond that, what other boundaries and expectations can we sometimes think about? Now, most people, I think, without exception, everyone I have spoken to the last few days, certainly in the UK where we are under severe lockdown, and it seems to be, for most people, I would say, a lot worse than lockdown 1, as we refer to in the UK, which was last March. This time round, because it's the winter, because we've got the fast paced version of COVID running around, people are just finding it a real struggle to get through their daily routine at the moment. But then it's really important that we still maintain some kind of boundaries with our family, friends, and, dare I say it, social media, because that's a great feeder, social media in particular, for perhaps sometimes while we've got time, some of us have got time on our hands to actually dwell on what everyone else is saying, and it can actually start to bring you down because people are quite focused on some of the negatives, and it just starts to bring you down. And actually, I have reset my boundaries with my social media. I don't spend umpteen hours scrolling on there if I can avoid it. And if I find anyone's post generally where I'm probably give people 3 strikes, there might be a frown the first time I see something that I think, that's sitting a little bit close to the wire. I'm not sure if that's really the kind of comment I want to be seeing on my thread. I might overlook the second time, but the third time it's triggered me, annoyed me, whatever it is, it's my social media, my choice. They basically get snoozed, and if I'm still not happy, they get unfollowed. And as far as, do people mind, or what about if they find out? I don't really care, because the whole point is that I don't want to be in that negative world. I don't need that in my life, and I'm a great believer that the 5 most important people around you are a great reflection of the person that you are. Surround yourself with positivity, and you will find that you've got the support to push through and do your work and get your work-life balance as you need to be. So certainly, you know, expectations of family and friends, and dare I say social media, it's really worth reviewing, just to see that you are not finding that you're being unrealistic. And finally, I'm just going to talk about expectations of yourself. This is a bit of a weird one. I don't know about you. I wish I could talk to you and get some feedback on your opinion on this. I know myself, and I know that I set very high expectations of myself, far higher than those that I would expect from anyone else. If a friend told me certain thing about themselves, I'd be the first one to say, oh, why are you being so hard on yourself, and why are you doing that to yourself? You don't need to do that. And yet of myself, I expect great things. But sometimes just remind yourself, be kind. And again, your expectations, it's good to be ambitious, it's good to have a focus and a goal, but that does not mean if you fall short for whatever the reason, whatever your measure may be, that you've failed in some way. Everything's a lesson. Take that lesson, build on it, and set yourself realistic expectations, especially of yourself. So that's my little Friday afternoon topic. I hope you enjoyed it and got something from that. Yes, my little weekly motivation tip. So genuinely, when I have already explained, I have this little tent kind of turn over the page kind of thing, and I literally turn it upside down, flick it with my hand, and I choose one. And I haven't had this one before, but this one came up, which is I am the boss. And I thought it was quite funny because it was a timely reminder, especially with some of the activities that have been happening this week, that actually, yes, I am the boss, and sort of the buck stops here, but equally that can be really positive and exciting and fun, that yes, we can shape this business that we have in whichever direction we need it to go. And I find that really, really motivational, in spite of what may be going on in the daily part of our lives. From a business sense, it just feels like it's a whole different area, and there's nothing stopping us at the moment. We are still pushing and striving ahead to make sure that we're putting all the pieces in place for this business, not just to support us, but to support you and others, you know, who are looking for the educational side of what we're doing and actually getting some learning from our activities. And we come back to obviously just a quick reminder, if you didn't get a chance to take this down, obviously the Like a Boss program is on your screens at the moment. While you read that, I'm just going to have a quick moment just to see if there's anything else I need to have in any comments. No, we're all good. We've got some hellos, so hello back to all of you that have commented, and thank you again for joining me. Well, I do hope that you enjoyed that and that you've got some food for thought about setting and managing your expectations and boundaries within that. And if you do have any comments, do put them in the YouTube chat. We are now live also on LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter. But comments get picked up straight away if you're on YouTube, because we can see them on the screen. But please do stay in touch with us. We hope you can join us again. We are live every day, 4 o'clock UK time, weekdays, Monday to Friday. Zaire does the Monday to Thursday segment, and you'll find me on Friday afternoon. So have a great weekend, and I will see you all again next week. Thank you very much. Yep.
And go on the green button.
Green button. Which one?
On the top.